Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and this is going to be the fifth front end in our series. And on this one, we're going to be doing Stencil. Stencil is not really a framework. What it is, it's a compiler that allows you to use a sort of hybrid of Angular and React syntax and compile it into standard web components. Okay, and just doing pure standard web components will be a future video in this series. I just want to show you guys how would you use Stencil, and it's pretty cool. First thing you want to do is install Stencil. So basically, let me just show you the command. So you're going to want to run this command right here, which is on the Stencil website. So you just run that. You get that right here in the Getting Started section. Once that's installed, then you'll be able to do this. We'll create npm init stencil. Oh wait, why did I do that there? No, Control C. I want to do that in our folder. Lots of apps. Okay, npm init stencil. Okay, and then it's going to ask you some questions to create a name for your thing. And since it knows that you're probably building a web component, it wants you to have a name like a web component, which has to be kebab case. So here you're going to pick your starter. We're going to be building an application, so we're going to choose app. So you can build a whole app out of web components just by using Stencil. You could also create an individual component that you can then use and import into your other applications, whether it's a React Vue, because the way web components work is that it's pretty much creating your own custom HTML tag. So once it's created, you can add it to anywhere you use HTML, as long as you have the right imports, script tags or whatever. And then this is created by the same people who created the Ionic framework, which is sort of like a framework for doing some mobile-y stuff. I think it uses it's a UI framework built on top of, I think originally was built on top of Angular, but I think it has all these components you can use across frameworks, because basically they switched over all those components into being sort of Angular built components to be building web components, so that way you can use them in any of the frameworks. But they're particularly built for creating progressive web applications, which, if you're not familiar with it, is basically creating a web application that can pretty much act like a mobile application without having to be put into a mobile store or use native mobile development practices. Okay, but we're going to use the app template. Cool. So we're just going to call this to-do-app. Again, generally, component names always have to have a kebab, which means it has to have a dash in the middle. So to-do app. It's just always the case. Remember that in the future videos when I do web components, and just do straight web components from the get-go. Just remember that's the case. Okay, confirm. Okay, confirm. Yes, I was just saying yes. Do I agree with what I see? And there, it builds it. So now I just have to go to cd into my, see that generate that pretty quick. And then I do npm start. And then that'll start sort of the default setup. So we'll let that do that. Let's go into that folder and take a look at what we have. Okay, so if you're familiar with, okay, yes, to-do app, I should have called it stencil something, so we know it's a stencil folder. But it does use TypeScript, so you see a tsconfig.json, so you'll see a lot of the TypeScripty type flair that you saw in Angular, but it uses JSX like React. So basically, creating your templates is kind of nice, because if you're familiar with React, you have that nice sort of JSX feel, which, I don't know, I like JSX. It becomes second nature after a while. So it's initializing its first build. It just creates a sort of little mini application. It's starting, making things fancy. And there's the default application. Cool. Okay, so let's go into the to-do app. Kind of like the previous apps, I'm not going to be making additional components. I'm just going to be working out of its sort of root component. All that's in source. Okay, everything is in source, and then there's sort of the index.html, which you don't really have to touch, which injects the root component. There's a root component which is injected via this index.ts that kind of clicks everything together, and that root component is going to be here in your components folder, so the app, and then each component gets its own folder. And we're talking about the app root component, so we're just going to work straight out of that. and it gets 3 files: a CSS file, this E2 end-to-end testing file is just for testing. I forget if it uses which library it uses. It's probably in the package JSON. Is there a package JSON around here? Should be. Package JSON. What do they use for testing? Nah, it doesn't specify. I want to guess Jest. Maybe it uses Karma like Angular. Who knows? Okay. Cool. And then there's the actual TypeScript file. So unlike Angular, which you had 3 files, the JavaScript file, the TypeScript file, the HTML file, and the CSS file, you don't have an HTML file because you're going to render JSX. So just like a React component, you need to define a render function which renders JSX. Okay? I'm going to delete everything but the div and just create an H1 that says hello world and save that so you can see the change. Okay, and then you'll see this just become hello world. Unless it's complaining about something. Let's take a look. Oh no, should be showing hello world. Why wouldn't it? Return. Can I find module stencil core? Well, it should. It's running. Let's see here. Refresh this again. Finish localhost is rebuilding. Div h1. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that JSX. Put some random text there just to make sure. Might be a styling thing. Yep, it's a styling thing. It's probably making the hello world text is probably white, or h1 text is probably white. So I'll just put hello world just for the get the point across. Let me clear out that CSS file. So that way that's yeah, h1's font color is white. So let me just get rid of that. Save. Okay, but you see that we can render the content there. So, as with anything, what are the steps we have to go through? And again, just like, again, inside this component, we can define pieces of data. So if you want to make something state, you would just use decorators. So if I want to create a piece of state, a piece of prop, I think a state that's just like add state. Let's do a quick look. Because we need to create a piece of state in order to reactive data. There we go. What I need is state. And updating arrays, prop, watch activated, watch handler. When props or state on a component are changed. Yep, I know all that. Again, a prop, so you use just decorators. So like if you want to define a prop, but I'm not going to get into props. I haven't in any of these videos because I'm just showing you the basics. Not making multi-component designs. But where is the decorator for state? It's at state, but just trying to remember what the rest of the syntax was. Let's just go back to the beginning. Okay, well, shouldn't be in. Oh, here it is, internal state. There we go. Okay, state. Okay, and that's basically how we define it. Okay, I see. So basically what we're doing is we're just saying at state. That defines it as a state variable. Let me just make sure that was that uppercase or lowercase. Uppercase. State. And then basically it's a function, so we have to do that. And then after the function we put the variable name, which is going to be to-dos. And then we just have to type it. So it's just going to be an array of anything. Okay, and then that should give us what we need. Okay. I think I need to put the word any in front of the array. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Or I'll just make my life easy and just give it an any typing. Okay, add state, open boolean, makes sense. Or I can just do this. Okay. All I care is that it's an array. Declaration expected. Yeah, no, that's fine. Why don't you like that? Keep it all together. Save. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm stupid. Okay, let's cut this out. I just put it in the wrong place. You have to define your state in the component. Here we go. There's the class. Okay, because see what happens, there's some space here between this and this decorator. This decorator attaches itself to the class. So this is like the name of the HTML tag. This is where the CSS is, and this is whether there's a shadow DOM or not, which I will get into a shadow DOM in a future video when we do web components. Okay, so that's why it wasn't recognizing it, because it wasn't inside the class. And you always need to define all your variables inside the class. So there we go. Okay, so I'll save that. Okay, but again, what does it look like now? Cannot find the name state. Oh, that's right, we gotta import state. Every time you use one of these things, you gotta bring it in. So state, save. There we go. Now let's just define a couple of other pieces of state, because again, we're gonna need to use the input later on. So there's our input for state. Then we're gonna have input, which would just be a string. Again, you gotta type things. It's TypeScript. And then we're gonna just to try it out. I'm not gonna even make it a state. We're just gonna create a variable called hello, which equals hello world. And since it's not state, if it changes, it won't re-render the component, but I don't really care. Cool. And then again, just like React, because again, this is JSX, I can just bring it in there like this. Okay, so I should still see hello world. Although I should probably put this dot hello. So that's going to error out. Yep. This dot hello. Because we're not dealing with classes again. Okay, so now if I go over here, hello world, because it's grabbing it from that variable. Nice. Okay, cool. Okay, so we have our variables set up. We have our state set up. Next thing we need to do is do our API call, which we just need to use lifecycle. So we just need to figure out what the lifecycle method is for when a component loads, which is okay, I see now they named everything to match normal web components, which that means connected callback is what I want to know. Okay. And if you've worked with web components before, these are actually the names that they have in the browser API. Connected callback, disconnected callback. So connected is when the component gets added to the DOM. Disconnected callback is when it's being removed from the DOM. So this is actually a good change. Like last time I used Stencil, they had component will load. This makes sense because it matches the underlying API it's using. So that's a cool change. I approve. Because that I can remember. Okay. So, I mean, I don't like the name connected callback, but at least everything is consistent. Connected callback, which I shouldn't have to import because it's a browser API, but we'll see. I should probably actually check to see if it says that in the docs. No. Okay, so I can just use those. So connected callback again is going to happen anytime the component loads, the first time. And the reason we want that to happen is because we need to do our API call. So let's do that. So fetch, again, that's going to be to http://www. Local host 4000. Okay. And that's that. So then it would be dot then, and then dot then again we get the response, and we need to turn the response to JSON. Response dot JSON, and then we take that response, get JSON, and then I want to do a few things. I want to console log the response because I want to make sure we got the right data, and then I want to I think I still need to set state. I'm just double checking. Do I need to do set state in Stencil? I think I can just assign it. Go back this dot open. Yeah, here you can just assign it, so I don't have to worry about set state functions. That's nice. So I can just do this dot to-dos equals JSON, and then that should do everything I need it to do. Save. So let's save that. Let's watch the component re-render, which means we should see the console log of the to-dos. Okay, yep, we see it right there. So we have an array of 9 to-dos. So it's working. Okay, so now let's render those to-dos. Okay, so what I want to do is we're going to make this an H1. Okay. Just cut this dot hello here. Cut. This dot hello. Again, this is JSX, so then I just have to do what I normally would do in JSX and just do this. This dot to-dos dot map. So each one's going to be a to-do, and for each one I want to return an H2, and inside the H2 is the to-do. Okay, and then that should give me my list of to-dos rendered to the screen. So this is just standard JSX like React. So with React, we cannot read property map of undefined. That's right. It's initially empty, so I gotta make this conditional. This dot to do is that map. So if this dot to do's dot length is greater than 0, then do that. And if not, then render loading. Okay, or actually, let's render an H2 that says loading. Save. Why? I cannot read property length of undefined. This dot to do's. This dot to do's. Oh, it's undefined currently, so we just do this. This dot to do's. I don't want to do compound ternaries if I can help it, so this dot to do's. If it's once it gets defined, it should have stuff in it. So loading, and then well, we got the arrays. So why did it not? Fortunately, I don't think there's like a stencil dev tool. Yep. Loading. So why this dot to do's? Let's go back to our function. This dot to do's equals JSON. Return this dot to do's. If it's thing, this dot to do's dot map. If not, do H2 loading. And so there shouldn't be these periods, these parentheses here don't serve a purpose. Okay, save. still wants to put them in there, but okay. Let me think here. This dot to do. To do's dot map. So why is this dot to do's? What I will do is I'll put a console log of to do's here randomly, so we can see the console log of to do's each time it runs with this dot to do's. Actually, there should be a lifecycle function for each time it updates, so that'd probably be a better place to put it. Lifecycle methods, connected callback, disconnected callback. Component should update. Hook is called when component's proper state property changes, and the render is about to request it. This hook receives 3 arguments. Now I want to say did update. There we go. Component did update. So let's use that. Component did update, and we're going to console log the to-dos because we just want to see if the state is actually changing. Save. Let's watch it load. Okay, and I'm not sure if we're seeing it, so what I want to do is put a little extra text here saying this is update. And then this should only happen initially, the first time. So, initial. Save. So I can see which console log is which. So I see it initially loaded, but it did not trigger an update of the component. Let's rebuild this. Okay, and that time it worked. Okay, of course. I just had to refresh. Okay, so it is doing it. Okay. So you can see there it goes. See the first time it brought up the information, then it updated, and then the state reflects the API call. So just to recap, you do anything you want to initially happen in connected callback, and if you want something to happen every time the component updates, just put it in there. And that'll happen after the component completes its update. Okay, cool. So then the last thing we need to do is just put in a button. So that would just go, first we put the input. Input type equals text. I think we may have to handle this one the same way we handled them in React with the handle change function, but let me check to see if they have any special form handling things. Let me get rid of this closing input and just do that. Okay, and then we have the button. Okay, and then this is JSX, so it's going to be like that. And we'll just have a function called handle click. Okay, and then we'll hit submit. So what I need to know is what do we have? Hosting elements, properties, internal state, reactor data, using JSX, events, methods, host element styling, functional components. We're using web components, so in that case, for the most part, I think we're just basically using normal DOM stuff. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in here NID equals, oh, not there, here, so I can grab the data from the form in a second. ID equals input. Cool. Okay, and we'll just grab the data that way. Okay, and basically we need to create this handle click function. Handle click. And what it's going to do is that const input's going to equal document dot get element by ID. And we're getting the one with the ID of input. Cool. And then we're going to do our fetch call. And just to make sure that we're capturing the right thing, so console.log input.value should be the value inside the form. And then we'll just do our fetch call. Fetch, okay, http / local host 4000. Then we put in our object method post, then our headers, which is going to be content type application JSON. Okay, then there's the body, which needs to be JSON.stringify. Which again is supposed to include a object that's a with a property called to do, and then that's where we're going to need the input.value because that's the string that we're passing in. Then we need to then the response response.json, and then one more then JSON equals, then we're going to just do a couple things again. We're going to console.log JSON to make sure we're getting back the list. And then we are going to, once again, this dot to do's equals JSON, so that way it updates the state. Okay, so that should do it. That's called the handle click function. Let's make sure I called it the same thing here. Handle click, let's see, what's it complaining about? Okay, that's fine. That's all TypeScript stuff. Cool. Save. Let's see if it builds. Build. Oh, we got an issue here. Cannot find name handle click. Did you mean? That's right. We are in a class. This dot handle click. I don't think I have to bind in Stencil, so I don't think I have to worry about that part. But let's see here. Property value does not exist on this type element. Okay. So let's see here. Let's go back to over here. Let's see what we did get. So let's just console log input. Because it should be ID input, save. Does not exist on the type. But it does. Think about how I want to do that. Well, take it one step at a time. Save. Let it build first. Then I want to see the console log. Let's see what I am getting back when I click this button. So there, here I have this thing. Put some text in there. Hit submit. Okay, initial. No. That's not what I wanted to see, but null. So it's getting back null. So it's not grabbing the input. So I'm going to have to rethink how I'm going to do that. ID. Input. Okay. And that's because it's shadow DOM. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at my options. Active data, methods, styling, functional components, frameworks, integrations. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to do the whole handle change thing. Okay, so we'll create, which for this purposes won't be too difficult. So what I have to do is create a handle change function. And what this function does, it takes the event, and then we're going to have event. We're just going to say this dot input equals event dot target dot value. Okay, and then we will have this event occur whenever on change equals this dot handle change. Good. So in that case, going forward, we don't need this here. I won't try to grab it that way anymore. I will just use input to do this dot input. And that should... Yep, so far that looks good. Let's go back to our application. I'm going to refresh. And I will do that. In that case, I'm getting back... No, I'm submitting null. Interesting. So let's think about that. So what I'm going to do is in handle... First I want to do handle change. I want a console log event.target.value. Make sure that that's working the way I think it's working. It's not, because it's not happening on change. So on on change equals wait, there it is. Oh, I just gotta take it out of focus. Okay. Cool. So then if I hit submit, I get no. So let me take a look at my handle submit here. Because this dot input should... And actually, let me do my component update. Let's also console log this dot input to see the input's changing. Save. Okay. Okay. See, now we're not getting defined anymore. We're getting no, which is weird. See, I'm not seeing it there where I should. The update. Oh no, that's just from the API call. which we shall do, is when we click console.log this.input, see that event.targeted value is the value we think it is. Save. This dot input's not getting updated for whatever reason. So event.target itself is updating. Let's see what I said for input. The input is a string, yeah. So it should be able to just take the string. Not target that value, so you got that. Handle click. This dot input. This will click the handle click function. This dot input. Method post content stringify. This dot input. Response.json. That all makes sense. And technically, whenever we change the input box, it should be this dot input event dot target dot value. Question is, why is it not changing? Take a look at the docs. Okay, maybe I'm missing something about forms here. Elements, properties, internal state. Here, if it uses a form at any point. This, that, open, that on, complete. Reactive data. Simply variables, data binding, conditionals. This is all fine, fine, fine. Here we go. Handling user input. Handle click. On change, that's what we did. Event UI event, this dot input changed. Pretty much what we did. Here we go. How do we get a reference? That's what I want. Oh, okay, we can do that. That would work. Okay, so let's try that. A ref. I always prefer the refs, so that would be nice. So that way I don't have to have this whole handle change thing. So I'll comment that out. I want to delete the on change from here. For some reason that just doesn't want to behave. Okay. Let me just copy that the way they did it here. Okay, put that in here. So this dot text input equals L as HTML input element. Okay. That works for me. So let's see if that works. So let's go here to our handle click. Let's see if this works. Text input. Which in that case, we would want const the value to equal this dot text input dot current dot value, if it works like refs do in React. And then we would say this is going to be value. Let's give that a shot. Yep, text window does not exist on type app root, so yeah, we have to add the variable. Let's see here, as HTML element. So I'm gonna just put this, put at state text input, and I'm just gonna make it any because I'm not gonna worry about typing on that one. Save. Okay, so now let's just put some gibberish in here. Try this again. Okay, so I figured it out, guys. Okay, so a couple different things. Now, over here, I ended up going back to the onChange function. And I just ended up defining the onChange function right here as an arrow function inside the onChange. So what I did is I destructured target from the event object that gets passed into any event. But the thing is that this all has to do with TypeScript. All the problems we were having have to do with TypeScript and with binding. I forgot. Well, it turns out we do need to worry about function binding, or function this. So basically, what I did here is what you have to do is that it won't let you grab the value from the target. It'll give you an error because it wants you to type it. Okay, it was like it wants you to specify what type of thing this target is. So you actually have to specify that the target is the specific type of HTML element that it is. So in this case, const. So what I did is I destructured target. I created a variable called value, which equals target as HTML input element because it's the type. So you have to specify, hey, just so you know, TypeScript target is an HTML input element, and then you get the value. Okay, then I console logged it just to make sure I was getting the right thing, and then I created a separate function to change the value of this dot input. Although technically I probably didn't need to do that. That wasn't the main problem, but that was part of the issue I was getting there. Just grabbing the value. Honestly, that probably could have been a lot simpler. The real issue was the handle click. What happened was I was just running handle click. So it couldn't find this dot input because it thought this was the button. It was the same kind of binding issue you run into React with class components. But here there's no bind function. So basically the answer is just to create an arrow function that just calls the function. So that's what I did, and that works. So it works. Yay. Okay, so that was a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Now, if you don't want to have all these really annoying typing issues, you could change in the TS config how strict it is. So let's just see where that is. Module resolution, target, not usable. Well, you can look up the specific thing so you can make it where it's like not so strict as far as how it expects typing. Is actually starts off in a pretty strict mode, which is really annoying. So you have to really kind of strictly type things. So that's the thing. But again, you would change that in the TS config. You would just look up how to do that. And then looks like here's another config thing. Output targets, but I think that's based on other stuff. Okay, but yeah, so we did it. Again, a lot more complicated than it needed to be, but yeah. Basically, everything worked the way I originally was kind of laying it out. Again, the big issue was just I needed to call this handle click function via an arrow function. to make sure that it had the right lexical binding to the class, not to the button that was invoking the class, which is a stupid mistake that I know not to ever make in React, but I just, I don't know, assumed too much and assumed that Stencil had some sort of magic around it. But yeah, no, we got it. We got it. I'll see you guys in the next video. So that's Stencil. Again, it's like a mix of Angular and React. So you get the JSX from React, but you get all the TypeScript from Angular, and it generates web components, which is actually really fast because once you compile this, you would actually build this afterwards. You'd get a web component with no framework, so you're shipping a much smaller bundle size. Technically, Svelte is even a smaller bundle size, but I mean, between Svelte and Stencil, you're going to end up having a lot more quicker initial loads of your application. So you'll have lightning speed applications if you built them in Stencil or Svelte. Although even though React, Vue, and Angular are still pretty fast, it's just Svelte and Stencil, which are newer, since they compile the code, you don't have to ship all this framework code. It's rendered into sort of standard browser code, so your browser doesn't have to do any extra work. Yeah, so that's that. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.